Welcome everyone back to another episode of Q&A with Sharon's son George. I was my mother's caregiver when she was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. Unfortunately, she passed on 1/1/2020. We started TogetherForSharon.com in her memory. Today I have an incredible guest, somebody who actually brings a perspective that I can't even talk about because he's really an expert in a lot of medical research, but also bringing some new devices that can help change so many throughout the world's lives battling Parkinson's and other diseases. So I wanted to welcome Wayne, but before I let you take over, this is not just a regular show. I feel like we're family. I say it a lot, but we actually met, and that was one of the best moments I've had in many years, being able to finally see you and give you a hug, but realize I'm 6'2" and you like tower over me and you make me look small. So that was exciting and surprising. So welcome, Wayne, and such an honor and pleasure to have you with us today.
I'm very happy to be here. I'm 6'6" for the record. So yeah, I did tower over you.
Like
And
six
we
eight.
well, 6'7" with shoes. We met at the Michael J. Fox Foundation Unity Walk in Central Park a few months ago, which was an incredible event. And yeah, look, so many familiar faces, but there's no substitute, and Zoom is not a substitute for getting out there and meeting the people that you are in this fight with. So yeah, it was wonderful to meet you and others as well in Central Park. Thank you for having me.
No, I appreciate it. I hope it's not the last time. I have a feeling we'll be meeting up very soon again. Hopefully Arizona. You never know, in 2026.
Well,
But it's
we'll be there. Symbyx will be there. We
excellent.
we will definitely be there.
So we'll be saying we'll catch up again very soon. But let's get right into it. Maybe you could talk about, I'd like to know, in the audience too, what brought you into first the world of, awareness for Parkinson's or any disease, because that's very selfless. It takes an individual, not just a person, but I know you're also a big fighter because I actually watch a lot of your speeches and your incredible awareness throughout the last few months that we've become friends. So maybe you could talk a little bit first about, what brought you into the world of Parkinson's, and then maybe more about your position now, and we'll get right into that area.
Okay, well, I would have said unfortunately, these circumstances brought me in, but it's actually very fortunate. I feel very blessed, very fortunate to have been exposed to Parkinson's at a very young age, and it's right through my family, father-in-law, grandfather, aunt. So I was exposed to it as a kid, and obviously as a kid, my cognition and understanding of the disease was very limited. But I do remember my grandfather taking me for a walk and freezing in the middle of a busy road, right in the middle, and I was 5, and I didn't understand why he had stopped. And the cars were whizzing by behind us, in front of us, and we were there, which felt like an eternity. And that memory is just imprinted in my brain. And then he was not allowed to take me for walks any longer after that. So I knew that there was this old man's disease called Parkinson's, and that was just a general understanding of it back in the 80s. Um, I, I think we all have a reason that brings us and ties us, and particularly those who advocate for the disease. Now, you clearly have an amazing relationship with your late mother, and that translates into grit and just enormous stamina. So that's very uh, uh, attractive and strong, and it's palpable. You can see that when you, George, advocate. My reason at the stage is different. I love neuroscience. I'm amazed by the nervous system. So my passion is learning everything I can, get my hands on, that I can read, that I can attend, that I can view online, peer-reviewed research about the nervous system. And we all know the nervous system is compromised in Parkinson's. So that motivates me to read more widely, more deeply than anyone else on the planet. So I would have read thousands and thousands of peer-reviewed manuscripts on clinical trials involving Parkinson's. And it is that perspective that I find incredibly valuable. And the feedback I get from the community at large and Parkinson's in particular is that you do bring a very open mind and a constant learning mentality to Parkinson's. So I've learned a lot over the last several years, but I love the nervous system. I'm amazed at how it functions, and I'm also amazed at what Parkinson's does to the nervous system. And to me, it's just, I can't get enough of it. And I'm inspired to learn more and more and to bring a deeper perspective on the condition to everyone out there, because it's a very siloed disease. There are many people doing many wonderful things around the world, but they're in deep silos and they do not communicate, talk, and cross-fertilize. You can speak to a brilliant neurologist and you can get all the information on every pharmaceutical available, but they won't have good nutritional advice, and they won't have any exercise advice, and they won't recognize the importance of good mental health and anxiety management. I'm trying to break that down and make sure people are given evidence-based information that is current and that we know works. And they're wonderful neurologists. I don't mean to bag on neurologists, but just in general, those are that's the reality of the people that are in this condition, helping people with Parkinson's. We're incredibly siloed and closed to learnings in other fields that could help us.
Thanks, and sorry you had to go through that as a child, seeing your grandfather. Any family, obviously, we have a lot in common for that. And can you tell us where you're live right now from, and maybe a little bit about your educational background? Because I haven't had anyone like your background, and that's why I was so excited to have you on. Brings a different perspective, more medically important too, that we have to bring to the conversation.
Sure. I'm being broadcast, if you will, live in from Sydney, Australia. So the background is the dawn. As you go into dusk there in Florida, our dawn is breaking the next day. We live in the future, so I'm going back to the past. Just to invoke a little Michael J. Fox analogy there. Back to the past. I'm about 14 hours ahead of you. And Australia has a very vibrant medical community, researching, investigating, pushing boundaries on different aspects of Parkinson's, in particular photobiomodulation, which is basically light therapy or photomedicine. It is the use of light to stimulate the nervous system. And light has been used for 120 years in medicine to treat all sorts of things, from skin conditions to jaundice, to seasonal affective disorder, depression. And now we're using it for neurodegenerative conditions because there are some amazing properties. So the Nobel Prize winner in 1902 was a Danish physician who invented a therapy for tuberculosis using light. So he won the Nobel Prize in medicine. So just quickly, it's not a new area of medicine. Light is used everywhere in the medical world, and billions of people benefit from the energy the sun gives and the vitamin D production and general neurochemistry in the brain to feel good. So that's sort of the Australian piece of it. In terms of my background, I do have a very varied background. I mean, by the time you get to your mid-50s, you've lived a few lives. And I think that's one of the challenges facing everyone today. You're going to need to reinvent yourself at least twice, and probably 3 to 4 times. So I have a background in finance and business. I did an MBA from Harvard Business School in the 90s. That's where I met my wife, and she's Australian, so we moved to Australia. I grew up in South Africa. Then I was an investment banker for many years. Was in venture capital, private equity, started a business. Then went back to my passion for neuroscience. I sort of reached, early 40s and said, well, what do I want to do for the next phase of my life that will challenge, motivate, inspire? And I came back to, health sciences. So I did a medical sciences degree, and then I became a doctor of chiropractic. So I then ran my own clinic, and I had all these incredibly interesting neurological conditions that I had to deal with. And I started to get back into the research, into the literature. And I had people with movement disorders, and I had Parkinson's patients, and I couldn't do much for them. So I had to go back to the research because it sort of tied in, and it brought back flooded with memories of my childhood and dear ones, loved ones that had passed with Parkinson's. And I just went on this, I think it was a 3 to 4 year binge of published research. And I found wonderful studies being done at the University of Sydney in Australia, where they gave mice Parkinson's disease. And then they treated the mice with infrared light, and the mice recovered a lot of their disability. So they started to walk better, their balance improved, their motivation increased, they started feeding spontaneously. Excuse me. And then they did something quite extraordinary. The scientists cut the vagus nerve of the mice. They gave them a vagotomy. And no matter how much they gave the mice light therapy, which is basically shining an infrared laser on the abdomen of the mice, the symptoms didn't improve. This is all documented. It's all published research. It's out there in the public domain in scientific journals. And they established a link between the gut and the brain of the mice. They also established a link via the vagus nerve, which is the only nerve that really connects every organ in the body with the brain. So they came up with this hypothesis that the mice developed dysbiosis in the gut from giving them these horrible chemicals. Dysbiosis means, it's not in balance, the chemicals, the bacteria, the algae, the fungi in the gut, which is called the microbiome. And they developed the Parkinson's symptoms. Somehow these particles, whatever they were, traveled via the vagus nerve to the brain and started to damage dopamine centers in the brain. And the minute they cut that physical connection, no matter how much light they gave the mice, they didn't improve. That's so fascinating. And then they did an outstanding study in Adelaide, Australia. Some really smart scientists on people. They got ethics approval, and they did it on a cohort of 24 people. And they're now 5 years into the study. The 5th year is about to be published. I think years 3 and 4 were presented at World Parkinson's Congress in Barcelona in 2023, at least the results. And lo and behold, Parkinson's progression has slowed dramatically, meaning much of the capabilities that these people had 5 years ago remain intact. So these studies now have to be repeated on much larger cohorts of people, but the results are staggeringly good. So that inspiration caused me to switch basically out of clinical practice to form Symbyx, to use that research, that intellectual property, and to commercialize light devices for the Parkinson's community. And we're 4 years into that mission. And, we'll stop there as we talk about Symbyx. I'm sure you have other questions, but that's how I got to the stage. So quite a circular journey, but back to really my passion and tying into, loved ones that I really had no idea what was going on, but now I have a very good idea what was happening to them at the time.
No, that's all fascinating and so important that we get the word out about your work and what you're doing, because it could change so many lives. I did a law degree, police, and a lot of masters, and I think the only degree left is MD. So you might have to inspire me to go back and join you in that. So I appreciate it. As we get
Oh,
to
welcome.
as we get to a very important area, just want to share now. I want to thank you again for not just today, but the past interview we've done together. everyone, again, please support Wayne. I don't know if I should be saying Dr. Markman, but please support his work. And you can go to TogetherForSharon.com, click interviews, and see much more in-depth research, and also a lot of ways to learn about him and also the organization. Now I want to move to what we're really here, not just because I enjoy hanging out with you, but that's one thing. But the second thing is about well, it's not a foundation, but a lot of the products and things that you just mentioned. Maybe you can talk a little bit about it as I kind of scroll. And again, everyone, please go to SYMBYXBIOME.com, but we'll also share that, as I always do, once we have this out there. So feel free to kind of discuss about, how did you get started? How did it even all become around, and what kind of items our viewers can actually purchase to help support their battle, unfortunately, with PD.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, George. No, we're not a foundation. We're a business, and it's because of my business background. We raised some money 4 years ago to fund clinical trials and regulatory approvals. That's the world I'm familiar with and know how to get things done in. And look, make no apologies for it. These are cost-effective therapies compared to consuming loads and loads of medication, as well as physiotherapy and years and years of missed work and disability. So look, at the moment, unfortunately, it's not subsidized, government subsidized in any country. It's a private health cost, but we have thousands of people in various countries making that decision. And I think the one thing we do, we run it as a business with outstanding customer service. So that's a very different experience for anyone in the medical system. Now, there are centers of excellence for Parkinson's around the world. I don't try to diminish great care when I hear about it and I see it, but it's very spotty. The care in the UK is just generally poor, underfunded. The care in Western Europe, in Holland, is outstanding. Care in Australia, excellent. Care in the US, depends where you are. This is giving people agency, the ability to buy these products and use them at home. Okay, so that's a key issue. This gives you the ability to purchase something for home use. George, if you just scroll up a little, let me just quickly, even further, if you don't mind.
Or as you're talking about this, maybe you can also
Yeah.
mention what individual, unfortunately, my mother was kind of, I don't know what happened to this day. And after writing the book, she had it for 15 years, Parkinson, but for some reason, the last 4 years, it just kind of progressed beyond belief. She was only 69 when she passed, but, maybe we could
Yeah,
talk about who
yeah.
the product might benefit to. Like, is it a specific person in a specific stage of Parkinson's?
Right. Well, the latest research is showing that the majority of people have what is now we regard as environmentally induced Parkinson's. There's somewhere between 10 and as high as 20% of all people with Parkinson's have a strong genetic predisposition, so a gene coding, an error in the DNA map, which results in Parkinson's. And we've isolated, or scientists have isolated, the exact area of the DNA that causes Parkinson's. There are a couple of markers, like the LARC. You've heard that term before, LARK. This is appropriate for anyone with Parkinson's. The gut-brain approach is essentially, and this is research that has been published in the Journal of Parkinson's Disease as recently as last year, where they're showing that the transmission of toxins such as fertilizers, industrial solvents, weed killer, paraquat, etc., is transmitted via, you breathe it, you inhale it through the nose, through the mouth, even through the skin. It resides in the gut. The toxin, the bacteria resides in the gut and causes high levels of inflammation. That inflammation leads to leaky gut, which is a point of weakness in the system. and that causes the leakage of gut bacteria out of the gut where it should be, because it's really important for digestion and for the absorption of nutrition out of the food, into the body where it should not be. And that transmission point, that weak point, is the beginning of a sequence of events which results in the misfolding of this alpha-synuclein protein, which causes, eventually transmitted to the brain, kills dopamine cells in the brain. How does it get to the brain? There is something called a blood-brain barrier, which is actually a physical barrier and not allowing, typically in a healthy individual, and a normal individual, I hate to use the word normal, but a person without Parkinson's, it prevents the transmission of those misfolded proteins and bacteria into the brain. But because you've got leaky gut, the inflammation also degrades that final barrier, which is the blood-brain barrier. So it goes to the brain. So the approach of the therapy, the Symbyx therapy, is to reduce the inflammation and to improve the environment in the gut. Why is this young lady putting a laser, which is a class 1 laser, perfectly safe for home use, on the back of her neck? Because we are priming the nervous system. Remember, it's all connected. The nervous system, the brain, right to the nervous system in the gut, and the connection is the vagus nerve. We are stimulating the connection as much as possible. The primary therapy, however, is, if you scroll a bit down, George, is putting that laser on the tummy for 18 minutes, 3 times a day. So if you go down a little bit more, please, if you don't mind. Yeah, beautiful. That PDK laser there on the left, the primary therapy is that for a great, you can stop there. 18 minutes on the gut, followed by 2 minutes on the back of the neck. The gut approach is to reduce inflammation. So that device has been used for many, many years. That technology that's in there has been used by the Scandinavians for many, many years in infrared light saunas. If you go to a ski resort and you've got lactic acid in your legs after a day of skiing, you go under an infrared lamp. They've got infrared saunas. That is being used to reduce inflammation. So there's plenty of peer-reviewed research to show that that particular wavelength of light reduces inflammation. So that's the general approach. Now, the helmet on the left, now that we are CE and ARTG listed, we are working with FDA. We are about to meet with FDA for a large FDA clinical trial to clear that device in the US. But there are other devices that you could use with the Symbyx protocol that are already in the US and manufactured by a US company. Get in touch with Symbyx and we'll steer you in the right direction. But the helmet there on the left is a wellness device, and that can be purchased directly over that black helmet by the website. So you'll find that link on our website, and you can purchase that. I've got one of those in my hand here. I just thought I'd preempt the questions, George. You basically put it on your head like this. It's actually a very cool piece of technology. You put it on your head, and it covers the occipital lobe, the back part of the head, and it pulses both red and infrared light for a 24-minute therapy. This stimulates blood flow. It stimulates the production of nitric oxide, which is a vasodilator. So it opens up blood vessels. You get more oxygenated blood. And you reduce oxidative stress in cells. So it allows the cells to function more optimally or more normally, when we know in Parkinson's our cells are diminished, they're under attack. One of the biggest issues in Parkinson's is scientists have found a link between the mitochondria in the cell and the reduction in energy, in cognition, that is typical in Parkinson's disease. So any light therapy, one of the best things about it is why, A, it's incredibly low risk. And we just have no cases of any adverse outcomes. But 2, it pulses light that is absorbed by cell mitochondria. So it's recharging the battery in every one of your cells. And you've got, hundreds of millions of cells, including neurons, which are brain cells. So we're recharging all those cells, and that's the energy that's coming out of these devices is basically recharging your system. It's giving you the capacity to operate at a higher level. And if you know anyone with Parkinson's or have Parkinson's, that reaction time is typically diminished. The person knows exactly what's going on and they want to answer the question, but it's just that lag, which makes, unfortunately, isolation common. Not able to communicate, not able to participate, particularly when there's a lot of activity and a lot of people speaking rapidly. So it gives you a bit of an edge back. Okay, so that helmet device is available on the website. We're just doing some work on the website, so if it's not available this week, it will be very, very shortly. But check that out. And the PDK laser, we are going to start a large random control trial, FDA trial next year. So watch the space, and that is to get that device cleared for certain Parkinson's symptoms. So which symptoms does that really help with, that gut approach? The key ones we're finding are constipation. Right? It's a hugely prevalent
Yeah,
problem.
my
I
mother
love,
had a big
yeah,
problem with that.
yeah. I mean, that's another whole webinar on its own, the diagnostic criteria for Parkinson's disease today, and what are the symptoms that affect people that people are complaining about most that really impacts quality of life. It's really not tremor for most people. Tremor is typically a key issue for males that are earlier on in their career or late in their career because of the social stigma and potential impact on career earnings. But if you ask the vast majority of people with Parkinson's, and remember, we've got 7,000, 8,000 patients currently. We call them customers because we treat them like customers. The top three don't include tremor. They're constipation, sleep disturbance, and brain fog. So tremor doesn't even appear in the list top three. Now, and that's correlated to the research. The research suggests that as well. Now, the issue is the diagnostic criteria are all currently worldwide accepted. Parkinson's diagnostic criteria include only motor symptoms. So you have to have a measurable tremor or ataxia, problems with the balance, or freezing. And we all know that they are late stage symptoms. So we're actually only able to diagnose people once Parkinson's has killed up to 70 to 75% of their dopamine centers in the brain. Can you imagine a regime, a new world where we're diagnosing it 20 years earlier based on non-motor symptoms? So one of those non-motor symptoms, to bring this conversation back to your mum and the Symbyx approach, is constipation. So if we could recognize somebody with chronic constipation plus sense of smell, diminished sense of smell, plus sleep disturbance, 20 years earlier, and intervene 20 years earlier, you'll find a couple of things. We would halve, this is according to the Lancet, we would halve the incidence of Parkinson's in the world in 10 years. Now, that's a big number. Think about the cost savings there. 2, we would put so many people that will ultimately develop the motor symptoms on a different trajectory because we know certain things are neuroprotective, like exercise, right? So you'd start them on a really rigorous exercise routine. Now, the downside is the number of people estimated in the world to have Parkinson's would go up by about 6 to 8-fold. So the numbers we all read about, the 12 million people worldwide with Parkinson's, we know that that's nonsense, right? I've seen a revised estimate now that it's 15 to 20. Even that's nonsense. It's 6 to 8 times greater than that. So it's a pandemic. It is a massive problem. The congressional ruling that I know you were involved in which is one of the amazing things about you, George. You're like the Energizer Bunny. You know, you just keep finding new batteries and you keep going and going and going, even through surgery. But it's critically important that there are people with your energy and commitment. But that is, unfortunately, we're going to find out that there are many more people with Parkinson's than we thought. It's the fastest growing neurological condition in the world today.
And one area I wanted to shift to, and then I want to get a little bit more into about Wayne, more about you, because we're short on time. I could probably talk to you for 20 hours. But one thing is the reason I wanted you here is that I want the world to know about your work. So what challenges do you see in awareness, reaching people who need to know about this? And that's what I hope today will do. Again, please, everyone listening, share this. I always say every time, this is not about just a hi and goodbye. This is a battle that we have to continue to discuss, to share, and to fight until we have a cure. But I think that your technology and your hard work and knowledge, because it's fascinating, really can not only change the world as you're already doing, but continue. But my dream would be that you reach everyone. So that's what I want to do. Maybe you could share quickly for a moment, what are some of the challenges of, letting the world know about this incredible products?
Great. Okay, so I'll just start the answer, keep it brief, by saying it's not my work. It's definitely not Wayne's work. I'm the front person who is able to bring it all together and package it and then go out to the world and promote it. Okay, so that takes a certain skill set. The skill set which the scientists have, which was the hypothesis that if you gave rodents Parkinson's, you could reduce symptoms by using infrared light on the abdomen. I mean, that's just brilliant, right? Brilliant. I had nothing to do with that. I was in bed sleeping. So there's some amazing scientists around the world. They all know who they are. I'm not going to mention them by name because it's too long a list. So it's a massive team effort. Right. So that's just getting that clarified. Now, okay, how can people help? We're a business. And I think to start with, people need not to be afraid of businesses, because sometimes businesses are a better place to force change than foundations. That's a general statement. How can you help? Assess the science on its merits. Don't assess the company based on the price of the product. So I would appeal to people to have an open learning mind. There is already good research out there on light therapy. So when you go and see a neurologist or you speak to a decision maker around, your loved one and what's the best care to give them, and they dismiss it out of hand, they just say, "Oh no, come on, how can light help?" Don't let them get away with it. Hold them to account. Do a little bit of research. I mean, there is something called ChatGPT. Just type into ChatGPT photobiomodulation or light therapy for Parkinson's, and it'll give you a lot of references and some published research. Take those references and say to your neurologist, "Could you please read these?" So I think what I'm trying to do is get people to take ownership for their situation. We don't have that dynamic in medicine, but we do have that dynamic in business. So I just want people to be more critical in what they ask for and what they tolerate and accept as being acceptable medical advice. Push the boundaries. So that's the first thing people can do to help, and that would make me enormously, eternally happy. Again, I mentioned earlier on that even the Parkinson's community, which is a wonderful community, George, and you know this in your heart. I know this. The energy at that walk in Central Park was amazing. We're all doing our bit, but we're very siloed. So there is some great advice already. There's some researchers out there that are giving very, very good advice and evidence-based, conservative, responsible advice on what to do if you have Parkinson's. And they don't mention medication once. They're not saying replace your medication, don't take it. They're saying, hey, in addition to your medication, you need to do exercise. There's diet you can follow. It's not a coincidence that only 5 to 10% of the levodopa actually goes to the brain that we eat, that a person with Parkinson's consumes. Up to 95% of it is actually activated in the gut, which is why you feel very sick. It's quite common when you take your levodopa, whatever the brand name is. So I want people to not tolerate ignorance and to push and to educate themselves. And there's great material on the Symbyx website. There's so many other researchers out there that are talking about a multi-pronged approach. Lastly, encourage organizations like the Michael J. Fox Foundation to understand light therapy. It's not all about putting a lot of money into pharmaceuticals. We have recognized now that Parkinson's is probably many conditions, and everyone's is different. And that's why a cure has been so elusive, so hard to find until now. It's not a coincidence. It's not because people don't care. It's not because there aren't some smart minds addressing the problem. It's because it's a very varied, multifactorial condition. So that's the one thing that worries me the most. I mean, this is an upbeat message, but in terms of that magic pill, I'm struggling to see where that magic pill comes from and what it addresses, because everyone's different. You can't have one pill for 1,000 different presentations of Parkinson's, but there's many things you can do and hold those in positions of authority to account. But you won't be able to unless you actually inform yourselves. And that's our biggest problem, is ignorance. That's, if it's one thing I could ask for, is don't be ignorant. The resources at your fingertips, aka the internet. Yes, Dr. Google has limitations, but if you read enough, you will cut through. So please push and educate yourselves.
Thanks. I have so many questions. We won't have the time, but at least I can get a little bit more about Wayne the man, which I think you are the man. What is one moment or one most memorable moment that stands out through all your work with awareness that you could share? So the one moment kind of, you just think about, that's what drives you to keep pushing.
It's the hardest question you've asked. I know that's why you
I have
kept it
more, but
to
we
the
didn't
end. Can I give you a montage of moments, because they all are linked, they all tie in. It was giving you a hug at World
okay.
Parkinson's Congress. It
I'm,
was
thanks for not hurting
it
my
was
back, by the way. I was worried.
Yeah, it was walking in the street in New York City with Larry Gifford from PD Avengers and post DBS. Now, Larry will forgive me because he's my good friend, and Larry's he's on the road to recovery, but it's not easy. DBS, excuse me, a very invasive surgery. So Larry, just before he gets in the cab, trips. He loses his balance, and I sort of catch him, and we like both slump into the cab, and we started laughing because it's just what else can you do? It's what do? You start to cry, so we start laughing. It's playing a game of golf. Now you'll really know my age and the people I hang out with. In Scotland, with a beautiful customer of ours who wasn't able to golf before he started with the devices. Remember, I talked about mitochondria and energy. Anyway, he's got motivation back. He's energized, and he's hitting a ball, and he's on the rise of a sand bunker, and he's still got Parkinson's. And this is not a wonder treatment. This doesn't take your Parkinson's away. It takes the edge off it. So he swings, and he loses his balance, and he rolls down the hill, and I'm at the bottom of the hill, and he rolls, he hits me, and I roll over, and then we're both lying on a golf course in Scotland laughing. But he's become a very dear friend of mine. And so the highlights are a plethora of interactions with people that I have become close to around the world who have the same objective, and that is to improve the lives of their loved ones and people they don't know living with Parkinson's. It is one of the most unselfish communities I've ever experienced.
Thanks. And if you could leave the Parkinson's community today with some words of encouragement, what would they be?
There is a lot more out there than the vast majority of you are aware of. There are some really great therapies, and there isn't one that is a silver bullet. So, the word of encouragement is you can definitely improve your life or the life of a loved one just with the current evidence and the current tools that are out there. There are just general categories. There's exercise, there's diet, there's stress management, and there's light therapy, and there's nutrition. So in addition to a good diet, there's also nutrition. There are people that you just have to search for them. And I'd be more than happy to provide a list as a starting point, George. But there are tools there that can improve everyone's lives. And you're part of an amazing community. And there are people willing to help at the drop of the hat. So just ask. I'd be more than happy to send some references and resources through to you guys, so you have them. Every Parkinson's advocacy group should be doing this. So start with your local Parkinson's group, and if they're not, red flag. You've got to demand it yourselves.
I really appreciate your time and your friendship, and anything we could do to help promote all you do throughout the world, and everyone here listening, please share it as well. I do have one last message for you and everyone listening. We always end the show with this, but we love you, we support you, we care a lot about you, and you're never alone. I, alongside with Wayne, will advocate for you, and together our voices are so much stronger. And I always say I'm just getting started, because when I meet individuals like you, even when you hug me and not too hard where it'll hurt my back. When I meet people like you and see the incredible, inspiring work you do, it really pushes me to keep fighting, even though there are some tough days. When I see people still struggling like my mother had, I don't want anyone to go through what she did or our family. And that's why I keep fighting alongside you. So I really just want to thank you for your time again and friendship. I don't know if there's any last words you have, and also if you could share your contact information. I really appreciate it.
Of course. Well, the last few words is right back at you, my friend. You inspire me, and there are days where it is difficult, right? Even for those of us without Parkinson's, because there are challenges in terms of getting funding, in terms of just, understanding of the condition, the speed at which we're going, running a business, in my case, seeing you post-surgery, still advocating and fighting, uh, inspires me. So, we're all human at the end of the day, and none of us have the answer, but together we're smarter than we are alone. In terms of contact information, look, it's all on the Symbyx website, www.symbyxbiome.com. George, maybe if you could share a link, when you post this on your social media. We have a wonderful customer care team that will answer all your questions. The details are on the website, so just please go there. We look forward to starting the dialogue with you.
Thank you. And again, everyone, please share this. Again, this is not just about a show. We have to get this incredible technology out there. It could save lives. It could change lives. It can actually help support individuals in the Parkinson's community, but they have to be aware. It's almost like I always say, I try to reach people in the community that aren't with Parkinson's, or people who aren't aware, is if we could get everybody involved, I think we'll be closer to a cure. So again, thank you for your time, all your incredible work. And again, I don't think this is the end of this. We're going to keep going, keep fighting, and side by side, I believe we'll come closer to a cure. So thank you again, Wayne, for joining me.
My pleasure. And George, send me another one of your mother's purple wristbands. I had mine on for 2 months
And
after the walk, and then it fell off because I wore it every day.
I appreciate it. We stopped for you, you got it, but we stopped sending them because they're so expensive. But I appreciate it. But,
All right. Take
I
care.
appreciate
Thank
it.
you, my friend.
Thank you, everyone, for listening to and joining us for another episode of Q&A with Sharon's son, George. Stay tuned. We have so much more to come. We still have a lot of work until we find a cure. We love you. We support you. And remember, you're never alone. Thank you, Wayne. Thank you, everyone. And till we meet again.